Hello and welcome to another episode of I See What You Did There, full exploitation of Riot's League of Legends Spectator mode. My name is Optimus Tom, and what we're going to be doing is taking an in-depth look at your favorite players and how they are going to be building and practicing the champions of their choice. Now, interestingly enough, we have Scarra in today's episode playing Diana, a solo mid, top, or jungle champion who's seen a lot more play recently on the Korean server. Interestingly enough, though, we're going to take a look at Scarra and something we don't normally see him doing. We're going to see Scarra on Diana in the jungle. Now, it's interesting to take a look at players outside of their normal role when a certain champion is on the rise, because they're going to want to learn everything they can about that specific champion. This can actually go hand in hand with some of the lessons I taught you guys in my In The Zone episode 33 about learning a champion or specific role and practicing until you're satisfied with the results on that champion or in that role. But anyway, focusing on Diana herself, there's an influx of Korean teams choosing her recently. Azubu Frost most recently used her to beat their brother team Azubu Blaze in the semifinals of the OGN Summer League of Legends Championship. North American and European teams may want to try her out as well, at least so they have some sort of idea what she's going to be doing come the Season 2 finals. What we're going to see here is Scarra running her in the jungle. Like I said, normally Scarra is a solo middle character, or solo middle player, which means that he's not necessarily used to playing in the jungle that often, which means we might see some interesting things out of him that we might not see out of other junglers, but for the most part, he's going to be trying to feel out what Diana can really do and what her full kit is capable of. Now, Diana is a very mobile, assassin-type champion. Most people will kind of compare her to a Kali. With most recent changes to Katarina as well, one of Scarra's favorite champions, Diana can be viewed in the same kind of situational usage that Katarina is also needed for. So Scarra seems kind of like a natural fit for the champion. Right out of the get-go, we joined in the game where she is already level 6. Taking a quick look at the scoreboard, we can see that Scarra is doing pretty well off right now with 2 kills for himself. Taking a look at her statistics, this is very interesting though. Seeing Scarra already has 100 ability power, he's only getting 40 of that from his blasting wand, and 25 from his Kage's Lucky Pick, that GP10 item that junglers love getting to help them sustain their gold count while they're moving through the lanes and ganking to help their team out. This means that somewhere along the line, that 40 plus 25, Scarra is running basically 35 ability power in his runes and mastery setup. On top of this, not too much extra attack damage, but spell penetration in addition to a slight little bit of cooldown reduction on his build makes for a very interesting build. He's going to round this out with a little bit of armor and the magic resistance. Nothing really on there actually. This should just be her natural scaling magic resistance since she is a melee character. So 44 armor probably hints to the fact that he's running some sort of flat armor runes. Most likely his seals. Now what we're going to do is we're going to follow after Scarra for the majority of this just to see how he gets a feel for Diana. She's, like I said, a highly mobile champion while using her Lunar Rush ability. Very, very good for ganks because she could really get in there and deal a lot of damage. Let's see if Scarra is able to gank this Lee Sin right out of the get-go while we're checking this out. Looks like Wings of Death is going to be the Lee Sin. And the top lane character, his Kale, well, I'm not exactly too familiar with I Am Talandra, but we'll see if we can get this going off. Scarra is going to use this Q right there to go in and get some damage down on Lee Sin. He also uses the W for his shield, but unfortunately is not able to actually land that Q, so he's able to get any of those moon procs or moonlight procs to try to follow up on that one. Let's see if we can actually go back just a little bit and figure out what Scarra could have done to make this a little bit better. Now, as we do see here, Scarra is going to want to connect with one of these Crescent Strikes to come in and deal some damage to Lee Sin as well as get one of those Moonbeam charges on. The thing is with Lunar Rush, it's still going to use some mana from Scarra, so he is going to have to use that up to run in, but if he lands it with that Moonbeam on top of Lee Sin, he's not going to actually have any cooldown on that, which means even if Lee Sin kicks him, he's going to be able to chase that one down. So let's just slow it down a little bit and see what exactly happened to Scarra here. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit here. So Scarra will eventually decide to go in on Wings of Death as Lee Sin here, and we're going to see why he wasn't able to jump to him. Slowing it down very quickly, Wings of Death decides to go in on Kale. He does actually land the Moonbeam proc on Lee Sin, but tries to get as much damage, but there is the dash right there to chase after Lee Sin, and Lee Sin playing that one perfectly is able to bait the ultimate out of Scarra, and Scarra just decides not to follow up on this one, considering Kale's at a huge disadvantage actually, only being level 4 to level 6. So what have we learned from this one, ladies and gentlemen? Well, let's pause the game and take a look at our notes. When you're first learning a champion, make sure not to overestimate what you think that character can do. If you get yourself in a bad spot, it could spell doom for yourself or your allies. Now in this case, one of the things that Scarra didn't want to have happen was her chase after Lee Sin, and then Lee Sin go back in on Kale, wind up picking up a kill, and then Scarra not being able to seal the deal with his Diana play. This is, of course, like I said, probably reflective of the fact that Diana is still a new champion, and not a lot of these North American, European teams have been using her. So when you're first learning this champion, you don't want to overestimate what your character can do, and you don't want to go a little too balls deep and have something very, very dangerous happen. Also, when you're learning a character, take some time out before you queue up to go over what exactly their skills do so that you can make on-the-fly decisions. Well, let's make on-the-fly intelligent decisions. Now this is going to be a very interesting I see what you did there on top of this for you guys, because this is basically one of the first times I'm taking a really in-depth look at Diana, which means that I honestly am going to be doing exactly what this guide says. I'm not too familiar with her playstyle because personally I've only played a handful of games as her, and I'm not a huge fan of her in the jungle. Scarra, in this respect, though, is just taking any time out he can to see her limitations. If he's able to practice her as a jungler and is able to get a lot of the ganks and the combos down pat with her spells, then obviously he's going to be able to take full advantage of this while he's in the mid lane. He is actually maxing out on his Q, that crescent strike, which we saw going in that circular kind of motion in order to snag and hit enemies, and of course is going to be adding that moonlight stack for 3 seconds, which you can then consume with the ultimate Lunar Rush to deal damage and catch up, much like Akali's ultimate Shadow Dash. We also see that Pale Cascade is her W spell, which is going to create spears around her that will explode enemies on contact, kind of like using shells in Mario Kart. This will be up for 4 seconds, also creating a shield around her. If you consume all 3 of those charges, make sure you hit every single one of them with those green or red shells, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be getting a bonus duration to that shield as well. Then on top of this, we have Moonfall, which is going to draw all nearby enemies in and slow them down for a stacking percentage over 2 seconds. This is the only crowd control spell that Diana has, so it's going to be very crucial that you don't blow it too early and then have someone like a Lee Sin be able to safeguard Iron Will, or any champion actually flash away from it. So that we kind of have an idea what Diana's going to be doing, well, let's just see how Scarra's going to use her throughout the jungle. She has a massive amount of damage, and like I said, he's not running any extra attack damage on her, opting to go rather for straight ability power. This is going to scale wonderfully because, as we see with 100 ability power, her Q has a 0.8 to 1 ratio, her W a 0.2 to 1 ratio, and actually the shield a little bit more, a 0.45. Moonfall does not have actually any attack or any ability power ratio on it at all, and then Lunar Rush is a 0.6 to 1 ratio, which means that Diana has some pretty powerful scaling spells, especially in the combo you're going to use to burst people down with your Q and your R. Diana is a mana-based champion. Like I said, being played prevalently in the top or mid lanes, she is going to want to have a blue buff. However, Scarra, already netting himself 2 kills, in addition to a bunch of items, is not going to need this with his ultimate. If he's able to refresh the cooldown, just run in there, pick up a couple kills, he'll be absolutely fine. He can just go back to his jungle or go back. So he's just going to donate the buff to his ally. So, one thing that we're going to have to learn real quick is... this is actually pretty cool because by not getting your blue buff, you're learning the limitations of your champion in the most dire circumstances. This means that no matter what, you'll know the worst and best case scenario when it comes down to the wire. This is actually a very, very good practice, and I'm actually kind of impressed that Scar is doing this. Going through the jungle blue buff list is going to be like, okay, let's say that Dignitas is going to be running a team composition that uses a Skarner since he's been on the rise, or an Amumu, who isn't as common in the competitive play scene anymore. Those are two junglers that will blow leaps and bounds better if they're able to get a second blue buff on their jungle clear. If Scarra is confident in his ability as Diana to not need that second blue buff, he is only going to improve his team's stature. So practicing by yourself doesn't always mean you're improving just your own play. No, I always can't spell the word just. Improving does not have a C, it has a V. I am a terrible typist, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. But practicing by yourself doesn't always mean you're improving just your own play. Picking up on little things here and there will only help to improve your overall team situation. In example, testing the limits of a solo middle champion without their blue buff. This opens a world of opportunities to team compositions with more blue buff dependent junglers. And as I mentioned earlier, Scar is a huge fan of Katarina, and Katarina is one of those champions that also doesn't really require a blue buff. She has no mana whatsoever. She is cooldown based, but considering the blue buff will add cooldown reduction, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing to give to your solo middle champion. But if Scar is used to this playstyle already, and he's going to try to test these limits on a champion much similar to Katarina in this Diana, then, well, he might not need that blue buff, and we could have actually I Will Dominate, maybe picking up a Skarner, or maybe a utility jungle, like I said, like that Amumu. Alright, we talked enough about that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get back to what Scar is actually going to be doing in this game. He is looking all around these lanes, which will only improve his roaming capability as a mid laner as well. The roaming mid meta is something very, very prevalent in the North American scene, and has started being seen by players such as Reginald, picking up champions like Twisted Fate, and of course we have Nijaki on his Morgana and Ahri, who love to roam into the top and middle lanes to set things up. Kennen was a mid laner we saw doing this as well, and Prowley from Team Legion loves his Kennen. So if Scar is able to be more mobile with his middle champion, then, well, that's better for him. So practicing in the jungle is actually a great way to improve your map awareness and test the limits to how mobile your champion is. Interestingly enough, Scar donates away the blue buff, but decides to pick up his own red buff. This is very interesting because red buff isn't something you would normally get if you're a solo middle champion. So he's testing the waters with some things here. Maybe he's using Diana and figures, well, okay, let's see how she does with this red buff, and maybe she's not suited for the mid lane. Maybe I can check out and have Dominate do this. She is going to go in right here and actually use the ultimate, uses the E as well to pull someone in, and they're able to pick up a kill on Battlecast Cho'Gath. That's actually pretty cool. So let's go back really quickly and just review that play for you, ladies and gentlemen. Scarra is actually going to find a Maokai in this bush over here. He actually was starting to recall and going for a gank onto Gragas right here, but as soon as he goes in there, Diana's going to come in and go. Activating the shield right away, Maokai tries to twist it advance to a creep to get away. However, Gragas actually uses an ultimate very poorly, and Scarra has to use a flash to chase after using his ultimate. Taking a very quick look at Scarra, we do see his ultimate is on cooldown because he was not able to tag someone with Moonlight first. This means that, well, he has to pop the flash and pop the ultimate without the reset because of Gragas' missed cask ultimate there. She is going to actually walk away and net herself a blue buff from that enemy mid lane champion, so it's only going to be beneficial in leaps and bounds by picking up that kill. Going in, she's going to counter jungle a little bit and just test the waters of that herself. So something we've learned here, let's see. Oh, I want to go back there, okay. If you're trying out a damage dealing jungler, in a metagame currently saturated with utility junglers like this Maokai. You need to make plays. You need to make things happen. This is also something very interesting because not only is Scarra playing outside of his role, but he's playing something that we don't see too often, which is a jungler that's built for straight damage. Like I mentioned earlier, he's been going for 100 ability power, currently with 105 because of his runes and mastery, so we do know that he has ability power per level. But on top of this, he's going for an Abyssal Scepter for a little bit of a defensive stance, but he's going to basically deal a lot of damage. He's going to hurt. I wouldn't be surprised if Scarra is going to be picking up a Death Cap on top of this, and this is something that we don't see out of junglers right now. Even more damage-specific junglers, such as Shyvana or a Nocturne, are going to be dealing a decent amount of damage to things like Wit's End, but their spells and abilities are going to be the real damage dealers in that. They're going to build more along the lines of like a Randuin Zoma to add a little bit of tankiness to themselves in team fights. In addition to this, they're going to have some utility to help out the rest of their team. Scarra in this light, though, is going in the completely opposite direction and just building straight damage. This is actually going to be extremely, extremely interesting later on because, well, we really don't know how junglers are going to do with this, but we know it works really, really well for a mid lane. Scarra notices something's going on with his team and decides to go down into the bottom lane and help out his allied AD carry in his quest against the enemy. We do see Tarek getting a little bit aggressive right there and deciding to try to go in on the tower. Scarra's going to proc his shield right here as he takes that tower shot to try to minimize the damage. He only really has to zone out here because the rest of his team is just sufficiently tower diving here. And Gragas is able to pick up a double kill there. Not too much to learn right there, except for Scarra is a pretty scary jungler right now, ladies and gentlemen. He is keeping up his map presence, though, which, like I said, if you're going to be trying basically a new champion, you want to just get a feel for how she's going to roam around. You want to get a feel for what they're going to be capable of and what they can and can't do. This is also a really good method for practicing your champion. Like I said, Scarra is probably going to play Diana in the mid lane. He's not the team's jungler for Dignitas. So by roaming around with her, he's going to see her capabilities as a mid lane roamer, much like that Ahri and Twisted Fate that we've seen other North American and European teams picking up on top of the Asian scene. Now, one thing that the Azubu Frost team did very, very well was that they used Diana in lane swapping roles. This is a meta that is becoming more and more popular in the North American scene, and by practicing in the jungle and being at multiple places at once, you kind of get a feel for seeing how Diana would do if you decide to send her top lane against, Lee Sin in this case, rather than the mid lane against a Gragas or an Ahri or a more traditional pick. Ooh, this is actually interesting. Scarra's going to get a little aggressive right here. However, Lee Sin's going to get the Sonic Wave Resonating Strike, and Diana bit off a little bit more than she could chew right there. Let's take a quick look back at that and see if there was anything Scarra could have done to make that a little bit better. Let's see here, Scarra. Alright, you actually got tagged with something here while you're trying to be aggressive. Did not notice that Cho'Gath was there because your ward was not necessarily in the best place right there. So that's just a little bit of being cocky right now. Scarra was 3-0, but is currently now 3-1 because of that little confident play. Alright, so, as stated above, when you're practicing a new champion, don't overestimate your own skill. Don't be afraid to buy a little extra in the wards or potions department if you feel like you haven't mastered the character yet. And interestingly enough, Scarra is doing something on this damage-dealing champion as opposed to utility jungler that we see falling off in the scene. It's not so much prevalent anymore. He's counter-jungling, and he's constantly taking the Wraith camps and everything, much like a solo mid champion would do. So, if you're going to deal damage, make sure you do as much as possible to as many targets as you can. Stealing away enemy rates gives you a CS lead. In addition to this, puts the enemy jungler at a disadvantage. This is only going to go double, if not more so, when you're in a jungle position. Damage dealing junglers like Shyvana do this all the time to great success. Diana has a great escape tool by tagging a target with her Q and then dashing away with her R. And meanwhile, I'm like typoing and putting random capital letters and everything, blah 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 blah. So awesome. But it's pretty much just standard kind of jungle stuff. Not only this standard kind of champion stuff. So let's go back into the game, ladies and gentlemen. See what else we can learn from Scarra on his Diana. Well, right now Scarra on his Diana is dead. So we're going to see that Wings of Death will pay in spades for his treachery against Lord Scarra in the jungle. And uh-oh. Looks like Cho'Gath might pay too. Nope, Cho'Gath's going to get out of there. They decide not to pursue that one. So while Scarra is dead for the next 10 seconds, let's take a look around the map. Okay. Our bottom lane here, 81 CS compared to 102 CS. This is something I actually want to take a look at in another I see what you did there. I want to get a Caitlyn player against a Graves player. That's a lesson for another day. So we do see that the jungler has applied a lot of pressure down to this bottom lane, but the bottom lane is doing a very good job just staying safe and making sure that they are not going to get ganked by jungle or by brush ganks from the jungle. Kayle in the top lane was at a level disadvantage, level 9. Still about 1 level disadvantage against Lee Sin. Basically a full level and then a little bit of experience as well. Taking a look at the CS, Kayle only has 58 compared to Lee Sin is with 83. So Scarra actually has a bottom lane and an top lane. As we see the barrel turns very, very slowly. Mid lane, Gragas with 101 CS compared to Cho'Gath's 95. He's pretty much on par with the random Bakugan guy who is now thinking he's a transformer or something like that. So the mid lane's probably the best lane for Scarra right now. So if you're taking a look at this, considering you want to kind of place yourself in this mid lane anyway, you're just taking a look at your top lane, you're taking a look at your bottom lane, and trying to identify how you can help out with this one. So while Scarra is running back to his own jungle, now picking up an Abyssal Scepter to make sure he's tanky while dealing a decent amount of damage, we're going to take a quick note. Identify what lanes are strong and what lanes are not, and make sure you help them out. This is a lesson we can apply to any role we play. But it's extremely important for junglers and those mid lanes, not id lanes, we're not Sigmund Freud, mid lanes who wish to roam. And while we were taking those notes, we do see that Scarra has picked himself up another red buff. Very beneficial. And this Diana, she is going to be a melee range champion, and by jumping to targets with that ultimate, she's able to tag them with a Q, get that moonbeam proc on them, use that ultimate, she's only going to be able to slow them, then pull them back in again with her E, which gives her a little bit more crowd control options. This is something very interesting, which, you know, you might kind of think like, well, with this utility and toolkit, she might not be the best mid laner, perhaps she might be suitable for the top lane. And like I said earlier in these notes, just because you're practicing a champion and you're the one playing it doesn't mean that it's necessarily right for your role or right or, you know, not right for someone else on your team. Very, very cool thing there, having Diana run away to the side there from the Blitzcrank gang. She's just going to be playing very heads up and very passively. Like I said, once again, you don't want to get super, super aggressive if you're not exactly sure what your champion is going to do. Or if you're in a lane like the bottom lane here that has a huge disadvantage and you just don't want to get caught out and wind up feeding away your only advantage. Scarra is actually going to decide to recall, and we're going to take a quick look at his gold tab here to see what he's going to be getting. Don't exactly know, considering he only has about 600. Perhaps a null magic mantle for Mercury treads? Or maybe he's just not going to buy anything at all. He just wanted to get out of that sticky situation with his life while he could. Interestingly enough, Tarek is taking a huge amount of damage and has to blow and exhaust, as we can see this from our right side panel. Ta-da! Scar going back and being able to heal himself up just a little bit. There's a lot of pings going around all over the map. Apparently here, Lee Sin's team is notifying him that Gragas is coming up from behind to basically, well, surprise, butt sex. There we go. And meanwhile, in the bottom lane, though, Scarra's team was signaling the fact that the enemy team was going for Dragon, knowing that 2 members of the team were up top. Scarra, knowing that he couldn't really do anything about this in a 4v3 or a 4v1 situation if Graze and Tarek did not respond, wisely just decides to go back and farm up his own jungle. He is going to get aggressive on this Cho'Gath here, though, and just look at the damage that Scar is able to wail away on this solo mid lane. That Abyssal Scepter is ripping through any of that magic resistance that Cho'Gath has, and even though he's a very beefy character, Scar is able to get him past half HP right there. Unfortunately, Scar, once again, kind of biting off more than he can chew, is going to get grabbed by Blitzcrank and, ooh, almost decides to go back in, but that Ignite is ticking away very, very low on his health. Caitlyn's actually going to tag him with some damage right there, and oh, Scarra. Scarra. That was a little bit goofy of you. Actually, Caitlyn's doing a pretty good job there. Alright, so what did we learn from this one, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we've learned a couple things. Generically, if you see multiple members of the enemy team in top lane and Dragon is up, this is your chance to take a Dragon for free. If your top lane dies, then you trade for Dragon. Even if the 2 members of the enemy team up top manage to take the top tower, your gold counts will be pretty much equal. Forcing a fight with number advantage is always a great idea, no matter who's on your team or what role you're playing. If you're on the receiving end of that gank, or if you're on the receiving end, actually the issuing end of that gank, and you see the enemy team going for an objective that is very risky to contest, back off and try to further yourself some other way. An example, go back and farm your jungle. Perhaps pick up your buffs as long as they are not too close to the enemy team. This is actually a kind of key point too. Scar, let's pretend for just a second that this blue buff was alive while the enemy team was over here at Dragon. Now, Scar's team, very quickly, had no vision whatsoever. They actually have no vision in this entire area, in the river, anywhere. They only have this ward. The entire map, just this ward. So what you're going to want to do is, let's pretend that this blue buff was up, and let's pretend that this red buff was up, and let's say the enemy team was over here by Dragon. Knowing that you have 2 members of the top in that top lane ganking like we had just a couple seconds ago, you're not going to want to go in to this area, especially in this blue buff, because the enemy team just pokes their head up or has a ward right here, you're absolutely dead, because they could just peel off Dragon, pick you off, and now they're able to get you and a Dragon on top of the fact that they've caught the rest of your team out of position. That is terrible for you. So what we saw Scarra doing is farming up the safe route for these wolves. You could go over here and try to contest this red buff, or you could kind of loop around and go over here and pick up these rates and golems as well. But knowing that you have vision over here, the most important part is you can continue to help your team push down towers and try to equalize that gold, because you know that you're going to be giving up a global objective. Or you can try to push the issue in, say, the mid lane, where this tower is actually fairly low, and you could have gotten a creep wave going and then immediately backed off, netting yourself a little bit of extra time to let the rest of your team fall back, buy up, and then group up for another push. Once again, Scar has been dead now for a couple seconds, so we're going to take a quick look around the map and see what he's going to be looking at when he comes back. Now, because we're in spectator mode, we do know that our team is slightly behind after being ahead much of the early stages of the game. Scarra is going to continue building a lot of damage right here, and we see him picking up an additional blasting wand. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see him picking up something along the lines of Rabadon's Death Cap. Kale in that top lane, managing to get back up to 91 CS, but Lee Sin still has a solid 30 CS advantage in that top lane. Riot Graves right here, pretty awesome skin, 117 CS to his name, but unfortunately still far behind that 149 CS Caitlyn down there. Gragas is still our shining star, 147 CS compared to Cho'Gath with 143, so he's still doing fairly decent in that lane. We do have Scarra reviving though, and immediately goes to the aid of her top laner. Netting herself a Q right there, Scarra is actually able to dash with the ultimate, and Lee Sin kicks Kale away rather than kicking away Scarra. Unfortunately, Scarra is getting in a lot of trouble right there from that Blitzcrank. He's been trouble for Scarra all game. The Kale ultimate does go off, but unfortunately, Scarra not going to be able to survive that one. Looks like there is going to be a little bit more of this fight going on. I'll just give that to you guys for now, but they are eventually going to back off. So important to note, it doesn't matter if you're the mid lane, jungle, top lane, or I don't care what. As long as you're in the game, wars are extremely importante. With a tilde. Tilde and then exclamation point because it's emphasis. Now, one thing that was really important about this play is Scarra did a really good job of going into that top lane and trying to help out his ally that has a disadvantage. However, if we back up a little bit further, yep, basically here to where Scarra is farming up those golems and then notices that Lee Sin is going to be going in on Kale. This is the one ward that we had earlier when that dragon fight was going down and when that top lane was being ganked by Scarra's side, and Scarra unfortunately died in that mid lane. Where if we take a quick look at the map, we notice, okay, Cho'Gath is right here, and we have two members of our team here. We don't know where Maokai is because we can't see him. We actually don't know where anybody is except for Cho'Gath and except for Lee Sin. Now, Scarra's point of view is, I'm going to go in here and help out the ally that's been underfarmed and try to get something going in momentum or get the momentum going back in favor for our team. Unfortunately, what we don't have is any vision on the map at all. So making a play like this, being a little aggressive on your enemy, is not the best idea. What would have been best is if Kale decided to back off, hide under tower, and Lee Sin probably wouldn't have dove. If Lee Sin dove, well, then Scarra would have been in a lot better position to pick up a kill. But instead what happens is, Kale and Diana decide to try to go in on Lee Sin. With no vision whatsoever, they don't see Blitzcrank placing a ward at Baron and deciding to come up and help. Now, Blitzcrank isn't necessarily the most damage-dealing champion on the team. However, he is a target for Lee Sin to help shield, take out a little bit of damage, and has a lot of crowd control. Something that Kale and Diana both don't have on their champion builds. Instead of having Kale just safely retreat, Scarra actually has to have the ultimate placed on himself, and because of Blitzcrank's great CC with that pull, that robot arm, Scarra gets stuck in a situation he just can't capitalize on, because even though he's a huge damage-dealing jungler at this point in time, well, he just doesn't deal enough damage to 2v1 at this point. Scarra is unfortunately 3-3 after we saw him being basically 3-0 at the earlier stage of this game. So unfortunately, Scarra's choice of picking damage dealing in the jungle over the utility like this Maokai has, and like the crowd control coming out from Blitzcrank, well, it's just not nearly as effective as, say, perhaps a Nocturne or a Shyvana would have, because they build a little bit tankier while still offering some sort of utility. Definitely not nearly as effective as something along the lines of an Alistar would be either, because the absolute crucial crowd control would have made for a lot more positional advantages in engagements like that one up top with Lee Sin, and probably would have benefited Scarra's side of the team a little bit more. Now that Scarra has respawned, he is going back into lane. One interesting thing to note, I'm going to pause the game right here. Scarra has not picked up his level 2 boots. So we're going to take notes on this. When trying out a new champion, don't forget the basics. Level 2 boots are pretty important. no matter what champion you're playing. Even a support role. CC is the bane of most junglers' existence. And squishy characters will melt if held in place or slowed down. If you're playing a role such as mid lane, like Scarra usually does, you'll want the extra mobility and the benefits of spell penetration, cooldown reduction, or magic resistance on those level 2 boots. The best part is, these level 2 boots are an item that aren't necessarily that expensive. Yes, it may cost 1,250 gold or something along the lines of that for a pair of Mercury treads, or the 1,100 for a pair of Sorcerer shoes, but the thing is, for the price that they offer statistics that work really, really good no matter what stage of the game it's going to be. Tenacity, on top of the magic resistance of those Mercury treads, is crucial for junglers because they want to go in there and try to, like, especially damage dealing junglers, you want to deal damage, you don't want to be stopped from having that happen. On more utility junglers, you're issuing out crowd control while reducing the crowd control done to you, which makes you less of an ideal target regardless of what's basically going to be going on the rest of the game. So picking up those level 2 boots are only actually going to help you roam throughout the map as well. So especially on a jungler role, you want to upgrade them for the move speed bonus on top of all the other amazing benefits you're going to get. So we do see Scarra moving not nearly as fast as he would with level 2 boots down into his own jungle once again. Checking over by the blue buff, they realize it is absolutely gone, and they are not going to be able to get that one. Although, probably having Scarra walk over here, he's going to prove me completely wrong, and Gragas is already going to have it. Well, Gragas, in the meantime, is actually going to get ganked, and Scarra is going to try to come in here and help out his ally once again. This time they have a numbers advantage, and oh man, Gragas being that one lane that Scarra's team that's doing exceptionally well, is able to burst down that enemy champion right there. Blitzcrank, bane of Scarra, no more, finally able to take that robot down. Scarra now, knowing that the team actually has 5 up compared to 4, and that Lee Sin is still in that top lane up there, is going to try to push some sort of issue. Tagging Caitlyn being a problem for the team this entire game, she's able to land a great combo with her ultimate down, but unfortunately Caitlyn places a cupcake under her own feet, and well, Scarra is not able to seal the deal on that kill. Very, very wise of Scarra. He doesn't want to rush into anything because he is squishy. He is still, you know, a very fragile champion. Does not want to get bursted down. And we did see Cho'Gath not only being able to crowd control him well with that rupture, but dealing insane amounts of damage because ability power Cho'Gath and the Abyssal Scepter, Kage's Lucky Pick, and Hextech Revolver, well, that Cho'Gath's packing a little bit of a punch. Scarra actually deciding not to recall right there. In the meantime, we did see Lee Sin taking down a tower, so they trade one champion for a tower. Beneficial for that, beneficial for the enemy team. However, now Scarra and his team have a little bit more map presence established. Ooh, Scarra's doing a really good job here, using these wards to try to catch Caitlyn, but unfortunately, there's no ward to see where Maokai is. Trying to make the best of this situation, she's going to go in here on Caitlyn, who fails the caliber net over the wall. So Caitlyn actually is going to die to Graves right here. And now Scarra's doing an excellent job of using his ally setup there with that smoke screen to net a double kill for his team. Being a very tasty, succulent target right there, Scarra's actually able to help Graves take down a double kill. And now Graves and Tarek actually doing a really great job of taking this Cho'Gath out. Blitzcrank with stars in his eyes. Scarra's able to get away with 10 HP. Excellent, excellent moves right there. Cho'Gath, in the meantime, will mop up a kill on Graves. And nope, Blitzcrank's not done yet. Scarra, excellent use of shield right there. And on top of all this, he's going to get all 3 procs from his quote-unquote turtle shells on Blitzcrank and survive. Scarra is learning this champion. Trial by fire, but he's doing a really great job about that. So, alright. Let's go back a little bit. A little bit more. Yeah, we're going to go to one about here. Now, Scarra's going to do something really good, which is... Okay, pause real quick. He has no idea that Maokai is above him. All he knows right now is Caitlyn looks like a delicious, delicious target to kill. So that's what his main focus is going to be. So as we go through the replay a little bit more, he's going to notice, oh shoot, there's a Maokai right here. I'm probably going to die because I'll get crowd controlled and I have no way to escape from this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try to make the best of a bad situation, and I'm going to go on to Caitlyn. She actually gives Scarra vision by attacking him over the wall. So Scarra is actually able to land the Q and then jump immediately on top of her, and look at the damage that Scarra is doing. Brutal damage. Pulls her in, but Maokai also has vision to get the crowd control down. Caitlyn doesn't necessarily fail the net over the wall, but fails to get away to safety because Scarra's ally in Graze is able to come down and help him out. Excellent smokescreen by Graze lets Scarra dodge the Vengeful Maelstrom from Maokai. On top of this, juking in and out of that smokescreen lets Graze finally seal the deal for a double kill. Now Blitzcrank is coming in and is going to try to make pick up a kill here on Scarra. Blitzcrank pulls Graze and actually could have probably CC'd him enough for the other Cho'Gath there to finish the deal off a lot sooner, but Blitzcrank gets stars in his eyes and wants to go after Scarra. Flash with the ultimate, Scarra gets away with 12 HP. And this is where Scarra is going to be able to learn, basically show off what he's learned from playing this champion. We know that shield on 4 there, look at this. Procs the shield, gets the bonus shield on top of it from hitting every single one of those quote-unquote turtle shells on Blitzcrank, and Scarra is able to live to see another day. He nets his AD carry, it's only 2 kills of the game right there, and on top of this, feeds Gragas even more, and all in all, they're able to net 3 kills on the enemy team. When faced with really grim odds, always try to make the best of a situation. Don't burn unnecessary summoner spells. And on top of this, if you know it could be lights out, try to go down swinging. Deal as much damage to as many targets or to the most vulnerable targets as quickly as you can to set up any kills for your team after you perish. Now this is very, very key, because if Scarra had used that flash to try to run away from Maokai and Caitlyn in that little skirmish in that bottom lane there, he would not have had it to get away from Blitzcrank after the flash ultimate, and Blitzcrank would have sealed the deal for a kill on Scarra once again, meaning that Scarra would have died like 3 or 4 times to that Blitzcrank alone in this game. So, making sure you conserve those summoner spells and don't blow it. One of the things that a lot of players do is, oh no, I'm being ganked, I'm going to die anyway, let me try to flash and see if something happens. No. Instead of that, you want to be, okay, I'm getting ganked. What can I do to benefit my team if they were to come in and mop up? Okay, well, Caitlyn's the range carry. Let me deal as much damage to her as possible before I basically pass away, and then my team might be able to come in and clean up. And if you survive because of this, then, oh my gosh, I have a summoner spell to run away still too, so I can make sure that I am safe no matter what. Take advantage of your opponent's greed when you're low, but don't stick around too long. We saw in the mid lane earlier in this game, Scarra was basically in the mid lane with a very little HP after getting to an engagement with Cho'Gath, and I believe it was also Maokai, where Caitlyn just kind of came up from the mid lane and sniped them down with her ultimate. So that was a bad spot to be in, and he should have went back because he knew Caitlyn was alive. Knowing that Caitlyn wasn't alive, he's able to kind of stick around with this one and let that Blitzcrank chase him and make something very, very beneficial out of it because, well, he still had his flash up. So make sure you can take advantage of your opponent's greed when you're low, but don't stick around too long. You will die. That's basically it. So one of the things we're actually learning from Scarra's jungle is not necessarily how Scarra, we were learning a couple things that Scarra is going to be using on Diana, but we're also using just general, a lot of lessons you can learn from picking up a champion or picking up a different role and just applying it to what you would do in your normal role. Like we said multiple times already, Scarra is not Dignitas' jungler, that's I will dominate. Scarra plays in the mid lane. However, by practicing outside of his role, we're basically able to pick up on things that we wouldn't normally see. Playing a champion that we want to play in that desired role, on top of having it be in a different role, means that we're going to learn things about that champion we normally wouldn't know. We actually saw Double Lift, and on top of this, GG from CLGNA. While they're streaming in Korea, they're streaming outside of their role. Azubu Blaze, when they solo queue, are not allowed to play their own role. A, it doesn't show their hand to opposing teams, and B, it doesn't develop quote-unquote solo queue habits of just things you will fall into and be like, well, that works in solo queue, why won't it work here? By having Scarra play a character he still wants to try in the mid lane, but in a different role, he's not only avoiding those quote-unquote solo queue habits, but he's learning things that maybe other Diana players will not know. One thing that Scarra knows right here is he cannot go in and be the focus of a fight. Much like that Akali that people compare Diana to, she wants to go in and mop up. She is extremely, extremely fragile and can't really go in and force a fight by herself. She needs her team basically to go in and start it and for her to run in and be able to clean up while not being the main focus. Unfortunately for Scarra, well, first off, he's going to walk onto a cupcake so the enemy team knows where he is, but unfortunately for Scarra, 3 members of his team have died, all for just a veil of Cho'Gath. So that means that he's not going to be able to contest this dragon, and he knows he has to give something up. It's looking kind of bleak for his team right now, but as we can tell, by the time bar, we still have plenty of stuff to learn from Scarra this game. Now this is very dangerous, because Scarra, actually Scarra can see 2 or 3 members of the enemy team, so that's not dangerous at all. But they're doing a really good job of keeping up with the wards, so that means that Scarra could have got on that Caitlyn, but I don't think he feels confident having Caitlyn with that double buff. Scarra's just going to decide to go back, and we'll see what he actually decides to buy up. How much gold does Scarra have right now? About 1,000 gold. It's not enough to buy his needlessly large rod. He is going to use all of it, though, to wind up purchasing a Deathfire's Grasp. So this means that he is going to be going for a little bit more of a bursty combo. Keep your item choices open. Sometimes you'll want to get a bigger item, but you may see better results for your team by picking up a different item to fulfill a more specific role. One thing that we're learning from Scarra is he can't take a punch whatsoever. What he's going to be doing here is, this Caitlyn is very fed. Phantom Dancer, Bloodthirster, and is going for a Guardian Angel. Scarra wants to initiate the fight. Caitlyn realizes, okay, she's applying the same kind of theory that Scarra did in the fight between her and, I believe it was Maokai in that bottom lane. She's trying to make the best of a bad situation. She takes down Graze, but Scarra is able to take down Caitlyn because of this. Scarra, with that Deathfire's Grasp, popped it in that fight and bursted down Caitlyn. Had that not been there, Caitlyn might have gotten away from that situation, which would have been terrible because it was a 2 versus 1. So picking up that Deathfire's Grasp is going to net Scarra a little bit more kill security. So like I said, even if you're going to want to go for that Deathfire's Grasp and you have that GP10 taking down already, sometimes it's better to get that Deathfire's Grasp instead of the Death Cap. Sometimes it's better to divulge a little bit differently in your build because you'll be able to fulfill something better for your team, which is unfortunately not dying to the enemy by getting pulled by Blitzcrank once again, Scarra. Gragas is doing work though. Fortunately, Blitzcrank's able to get away. They should just turn on Cho'Gath here. Nope, there's a Maokai. Sorry, Tarek, I think you're dead. This Gragas right here, he definitely should have run away. And once again, we're just kind of trying to fill time while Scarra is unfortunately dead. Okay, Scar will be back up in about 5 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. So, basically, like I said, Scarra realizes how squishy he is. We saw him get pulled, we saw him get bursted down. He's going to want to go for a little bit more bursty right now. Now that he's picked up that chain vest, he has the burst, he knows he can provide his team a little bit of damage. Now that he's fulfilled the role that he's supposed to, which is damage-dealing jungler, he's going to want to build some sort of defenses. This could be going any sort of way right now. What the normal mind may think is this is going to be a Zhonya's Hourglass, so that if he gets pulled once again, or he could dodge a pull by activating the Zhonya's Hourglass, he'll become invulnerable for a couple seconds, and then he'll be able to survive. The team will go a little overextension on him, and he'll be able to help with his team turn around a fight, hopefully. This could also be something along the lines of a Guardian Angel, so that if he were to jump in and then die, he can revive and then later help clean up the team fight while his team distracts the enemy while he's reviving. Now, this is just a couple different ways that he could think about, and like I said, depending on what the team is going to need, his itemization choices may change. He could be going for that Zhonya's Hourglass if he's going to be a target they decide to peel off and focus on later in team fights after he jumps in, or he could go for that Guardian Angel if he wants to try to force the issue and be that initiator. Right now, they do have a really good initiate with that Gragas ultimate. Unfortunately, it's one of the only initiations they have. Picking up a Guardian Angel on top of that Kale ultimate might not be a terrible, terrible idea, but if he wants to continue to supply his team with a decent source of damage, he will try to pick up that Zhonya's Hourglass instead to supplement more ability power. One of the things that picking up that Deathfire's Grass has done is cut a little bit of his damage into the later stages of the game. We all know this because Deathfire's Grass doesn't have nearly as much ability power as a Rabbidan's Death God. Right now, though, his team is put in a very defensive posture, so one thing that Scar is not going to be able to do is, well, be aggressive. He wants to just make sure he can poke and prod away, and Diana's kit isn't necessarily the best for this. She has an okay poke with that Q, but unfortunately, well, not only is she going to get pulled right here, which is not very well suited for him, but unfortunately her kit is usually much more designed to kind of dash in and out of situations. Like I said, it's definitely like a Katarina, it's definitely like an Akali kind of kit. If you find yourself in a bad spot for your champion design, try to make the best of it. An example, Scarra poking with Q rather than just running away, but still trying to play safe. Everybody's going to be like, what happened? What happened? Well, Scar was still dead, and his team lost the bottom tower. Scar really needs to stop getting pulled, but noticing that the enemy team was low after going for a prolonged engagement, he's able to follow up by picking up a kill with his ultimate, and actually nets himself a triple kill because of the overextension from the enemy team. Fortunately, his team will get ace. Caitlyn takes a lot of tower shots in this as well. But let's go back really quickly and see what Scar actually did with Diana here to net that kill. Where are you, Diana? Alright, this is a little bit further back, so we're going to go up. We're going to go up. Alright, there you are, Scar. So Scar just revives. He's going to come in here and blitzcrank, having Scar as his favorite target. As soon as Scar gets in the fray, decides that he's going to hook her. Unfortunately, blitzcrank gets a little overconfident and gets bursted down here. Scar is going to use his E to pull everyone in and then flash away. He's going to follow up with a very quick Q and take down Maokai as well. Between the Vengeful Maelstrom and Caitlyn, he's going to be able to fall down, but Cho'Gath's been tagged with damage from him and also has drawn tower aggro because there are no more minions around, and Cho'Gath will fall as well. So once again, this is just continuing to make the best of a bad situation. There wasn't anything different that Scarra did in that fight from the rest of the game. It's just that, well, there was a bad opportunity or bad spot his team was in. Only 2 of them were alive, and 5 members of the enemy team were pushing down. Scarra was just able to play very, very heads up, use his really, really good skills as a player and what he's learned from Diana from the rest of this game, and apply it to that team fight. And well, even though he got hooked, which is something that's been happening to him quite frequently in this game, this time he kind of wanted to get hooked because it worked out very, very beneficially for his team. Now you're on the back foot. No one ever wants to be in this defensive kind of position. Your inhibitor is down. You were down in global gold. You were down in kills. You're down in global objectives because your enemy team just took dragon. You have absolutely no idea. And on top of this, you're down in towers. So what can you do? Well, one thing you do know is the enemy team has taken a large chunk of damage and is going to have to go back. They're going to heal up and they're going to buy, and they're going to be stronger than ever. So what are you going to do? You're going to deny as much stuff on the map as possible to them. Actually, we're going to pause real quick so we can take some notes. When playing from behind, make sure to deny as much as possible from the enemy team when you're given a chance. An example, if they take a tower or Baron, take a tower or Baron or Dragon or any sort of objective and have to recall to heal or buy up, move out on the map, move on the map, move out on the map wisely, and take any objectives remaining away from them. Not only will this make you stronger, but it will deny resources to the enemy team, and if not stall their advance, make it weaker than it could have been. This, once again, is a key reason to have lots of wards. And this isn't just something that's Scarra's fault. This is his entire team's fault. And this is, of course, the fault of if the enemy team is going to be getting an Oracle's Elixir or anything. But let's activate the Scarra team vision once again. Well, here's his team. And here's Graves. And here's Scarra. And here's their vision ward. And that's their only vision ward. So right now, they have absolutely no idea where the enemy team is. Enemy team, vision ward here. They don't have anything down here, so they don't know what's going on here. They do know that Graves was down there because they saw stuff dying. They have some vision over here, so they know that the enemy team is somewhere on this side of the map. Not only because they just knocked down this inhibitor, but because it's the only place that they don't have vision for, so they know that they're all over here, meaning that, hey, this might be a good idea to go in and start Baron. So they are going to start one of Curse Gaming's favorite things in the world, the possible Baron dance. Of course, the rest of the team realizes, oh shoot, we haven't seen them for a while, let's run to Baron because that's probably where they are. And you know what? You're right. Just because you don't have wards and you don't see, and you know, just because you don't have wards doesn't mean that you can't have map awareness. You know, you don't see where the enemy team is, well, they might be at Baron. If you go check Baron and they're there, well, congratulations, you're absolutely right. One thing you don't want to do, though, is not have any wards so that your support gets hooked in the middle of a team and forces an awkward situation team fight. Scar is actually going to go in here, though. He's going to get kicked back by Lee Sin, and this range on this Caitlyn is going to be devastating. Scar is going to be able to finish up the deal on Maokai, though, but unfortunately, Lee Sin and Caitlyn both have Guardian Angels, and ooh, I don't even know how that Sonic Wave actually missed Gragas right there, but it was good that it did. But because both members of that team have Guardian Angels, Scar's team, even though they trade 1-for-1, they can't go in on this, because theoretically, it's still basically a 6 versus 4, because Lee Sin and Caitlyn are going to be alive twice. Scar is playing extremely dangerous right here. He wants to try to melt down the very, very weak targets. He's not able to tag Blitzcrank, though. Decides to burst down Cho'Gath because of that Deathfire's Grasp. They don't know where Lee Sin is. They don't know where Caitlyn is. Although Lee Sin actually finds Graves there. Scar does a really great job in cleaning up any target that he can. And if they continue to trade evenly like this, from a behind position, this is great. But Scar's got to be really careful. Like I said, Lee Sin has a Guardian Angel. He's actually going to be taken down because Lee Sin just too strong right now. Lee Sin has a Guardian Angel, a Trinity Force, a Brutalizer. Even though Kale's actually going to get some splash damage on pick up a kill on Blitzcrank right there. Now Lee Sin is back alive. Lee Sin's going to have to be very, very cautious here. And this team is actually going to trade in favor. So what we do have here after prolonged engagement is a roundabout 4-for-2 in favor of Scarra's team. So this is really, really great. Once again, this is going to piggyback on top of the thing of try to make the best out of a bad situation. But when you're when you're behind, remember that trading evenly in situations with the enemy team is technically putting you ahead.